Vanakkam from Semmozhi Multimedia Center. This is Dr. Madhusudhanan Kalaichelvan discussing Silappadhikaram, the story of the anklet, one of the greatest literature from the ancient Tamil world. Talking about the life history of Kovalan and Kannagi, a very popular couple in whose life fate played and took several twists, and from which we have a lot of lessons to learn. In the previous episode of this series, we were discussing about the debut performance of Madhavi and how it was welcomed by one and all and how dazzling the show was, and at the end of which she was gifted a garland of precious stones which was announced to be sold for 1008 weighed portions of gold, and the barter was whoever could pay a ransom to it, who could pay the 1008 coins of gold, can have Madhavi also. And it was Kovalan, the lead male character, the hero of this opera, who walked on the street. The same moment, fate chose him to pay the cash, get Madhavi along with the garland, and he fell for her, in love with her. Her beauty was so commanding that Kovalan forgot who he was, what his family was, and his father, their reputation, the status of the family, and everything. The age which charmed him, and the epitome of beauty that Madhavi was, strong enough to have Kovalan under her commands. Interestingly, Ilangovadigal, the author, does not find a fault in Madhavi. She was equally young, a very beautiful woman, an established danceress whose debut was so well welcomed, and with all that said, it was a tradition back then for offering these kind of services. And so this young chap here, Kovalan, who was probably taken in by lust of his, the senses which played a very strong role in forcing him do things which he wouldn't have otherwise. He paid the ransom of 1008 kalanji of gold. Of course, he belongs to a very wealthy family, so he could afford it, and took Madhavi and fell for her and spent all his evenings, all his days with her. In the due course, it became so strong that he forgot that he had a family and an equally beautiful young woman as his wife, Kannagi as his wife. He forgot her for good and spent all his days at the residence of Madhavi. And with that, the episode which describes the debut of Madhavi comes to a close, and Ilango, the poet, the author, takes us to the next chapter, where he starts discussing about the times that Kovalan spent with Madhavi, and at the same time, running parallel, the residence of Kannagi, where she was all worried and waiting for Kovalan, the sorrow-drilled life of Kannagi and the way Kovalan spent his time in lust with Madhavi. Both these are compared and contrasted. So the next chapter, which talks about in praise of the evening. The sun's set and the moon is rising up. So this evening time is very well described by Ilangovadigal. The evening time as such is a transition from the bright dazzling sun to the cool and wind blowing evening times, where the moon rises up. The sun has his own strong disk of light which he spreads unequally all over the world, because depending on the season, as the earth rotates, the sun has it sees a difference in the way it spreads the light. On the other hand, the moon does not make these differences. The chillness, the cold breeze that brings in, all of it is very common to the world. Everywhere around, the moon is not seasonal, while the warmth is. So there is this difference. So the sun, who commands the weather condition, he has his own way of dealing with people from different parts of the world. So there is slightly a sense of being unequal, while the moon does not cast or commands seasonal variations. He is the same all through the year. So Ilangovadigal establishes this. Probably the reason being, Jyotisha, as it is called, the school of astrology, is from Jyoti, which is the sun. The sun, who sits in the center and has a 360-degree command over the other planets that goes around him, causes the astronomical or astrological variations. It does not cause only the astronomical variations, he also commands the astrological variations. Well, astrology as a science, as a school of science, has been accepted in Indian tradition. So, we look at it at that perspective. So, the sun's move is unequal, which means astrological movements causes a lot of change in your life, and it is not common to one and all. That is where the concept of fate also comes in. Our karma couples up with the astrological changes, and it is not the same for all. The same planetary position might work out different for someone else. So, the cases can be individual, and this individualistic aspect is achieved by our varying quantity of karma. So, here again Ilango compares the sun and the moon and says, unlike the sun, the moon is common to all. It does not make any changes. Everywhere around the world, the evenings and all through the year, the evenings and night times are similar. So, here we have the evening that is being discussed at length. The sun setting also commands activities of all forms of life coming to a close. The birds tend to fly back to their nests, the animals to their dens. We people also, we come to a close with our daily activities, be it our profession or whatever we practice. So, the sun setting in kicks it all up, and as the sun sets in, we are done for the day. The body which has been working, thinking, it needs a break, and the setting of the sun has a very beautiful way of transition, and our energy is spent for the day. So, we take a break and we go back home. So, we all go back in our shelter. Our respective shelters is what we look forward to when it comes to the evening. So, here again Ilango Vadigal talks about this transition. So, Kovalan is in the residence of Madhavi, and those are the quarters, the residential quarters of women who offer these services, and lust is at its best in that quarter. Also, the sun setting in talks about everything comes to a close, the setting down. This chapter is the transition where Kovalan, who was a young businessman who was expected to go abroad, command the seas, go abroad, cross the oceans and transact, bring back a lot of good fortune and money, and continue the legacy of the family. But here he is falling into this trap of lust, and that is going to cast a sunset in his life and career also. So, these are all those beautiful symbolic ways in which Ilango sets this work. So, he describes the evening and tells about how the evening is it is not partial, impartial it is. So, all through the year the evenings are the same, and here the evening also brings to a close the bright daylight activities of the individuals. We get into a very closeted motion as the sun sets in. Darkness is also coupled up with activities which are not common, activities which are very personal. Those are the times that we retire for the day, our way of rejuvenating ourselves. It differs. Some of us would like a cold shower once we are back from office. Some of us would like to relax with some good music. There are other forms of relaxation also. For a few, it is a visit to a local temple. So, we all look forward for a way to relax ourselves, our senses, our physical body, and cultivate enough strength through a night's sleep and start the next day fresh. So, it is in this beautiful creation that half of the day's time is spent in earning, and then you have an occasion to sit back, rest, and spend the money that you have rightfully earned to relax yourself. So, the evening is that kind of time spent. So, Kovalan is described to have occupied the beds of the terrace, and the bed is also described to be very soft, silk laden, and it is cool and it is smooth, it is fragrant. It is decorated with freshly plucked flowers for the evening. There are flowers that bloom in the evening also. We have most of the flowers that wakes up as the sun's rays fall on it and it blooms. There are also other flowers which are active as the moon sets in. Those are the flowers that are identified to be tamasic in nature. Those are the flowers which causes a command of being lazy in us. So, those are the flowers that are chosen to decorate the night time. And here you have flowers like mullai and ambal. These are traditional names given to flowers which are like lilies, which bloom in the night times, in the evening times, and those are prescribed to decorate your bedroom chambers for the night. So, here you have the bed that is set up there, and there is a silk blanket covering the bed, and the bed is very smooth and soft, and it is fragrant, and they have used flowers to decorate it. There in the bed, time of Kovalan was spent appreciating the beauty of Madhavi. But is lust all about just appreciation? Not necessarily. After the some amount of enjoying themselves, lust plays a role. There are differences that picks up right in the bed. And the best part is to have these kind of mood swings and swifts in the bed, and then there is love which rises up again. So this is again a very, very intimate moment which Ilango Vadigal describes at length. He talks about how love and those differences of opinions that crops up, love wars as they are called, also comes along, and then it is followed by love again. So this is a very beautiful scenario where such differences and arguments or minor wars casts and brings them both closer, much closer, and the intimacy is even more brought up. These are those very, very beautiful, not so popular aspects of Sangam literature, which brings out topics which are generally not discussed otherwise. So Ilango, who wanted to make a book, an opera on life as it is, life of a common man, life of somebody who is looking forward for a fortune, and he was a young man too. So all of this playing a role in there, Ilango describes it. He talks about the fragrance which was prevailing there. He talks about the agents of fragrance which are procured from various mountains, natural agents that are brought together and burnt, and so the smoke from which lit the room inside, the terrace garden there. As the sun sets, there is a changeover in the landscape. The light reduces, the winds become cool, and they start playing. He talks about how the wind is compared with bringing in musical notes, and then there is the flowers which bloom in the evening times, which goes on to decorate the bedroom chambers. And then it talks about the love that was oozing between Kovalan and Madhavi. Madhavi, of course, was a danceuse, an artist who was very artistful. So right there in the presence of Kovalan, she was even more artistic in the way she shared her intimacy with Kovalan. So all of this is described, which was very strong that Kovalan lost himself to her, forgot his responsibilities, duties, and his rightful wife, who, for having committed no sin of hers, was waiting somewhere else. It talks about the fragrance from the sandalwood paste that the women wore on themselves. It talks about how the sandalwood was picked from the mountains in the south of India, which are the Western Ghats, which were ground against stones. Sandalwood grinding is an ancient art form, in fact. So the stone that is picked up for grinding sandalwood is also picked, it's made from specific varieties of stone that we have. The stone should also be textured, so the sandalwood can be ground well. With friction, it grinds well. Added to it is very fine flakes of saffron and edible camphor, which goes into aggravating the fragrance in it, which makes it very, very seducing. And this was worn by the women. So the grinding stones are procured from the northern mountains, while the sandalwood as such from the southern mountains. So this integration of north and south in India, making the north and south as pairs for a better result, seems to have been there since the ancient times in literature from all over India. The regional literature has always strived to bridge the gaps, bridge the geographical difference, and bring them much closer and to bind them all together. That's what strengthens the concept of Bharat. So here Ilango Vadigal very particularly talks about how the grinding stones from the north and the sandalwood from the south were brought in together, paired well, to get the best out of the sandalwood. And the women who wore it were good enough to seduce men there. And Kovalan, who had forgotten himself, lay there along with her, spent his days, mornings and evenings, dripping in love of Madhavi, getting sunk in the love of Madhavi. This is one part of what the evening can do in the age-old city of Puhar. So in the quarters where women could offer themselves to men who could afford them, this was the scenario. Then you have the evenings which were spent in solitude by women who were all by themselves. Evening also casts a sense of distraction to lovers who have separated for a purpose. The hero would have gone to fight a war, or he would have gone to make a fortune, or he would have gone to get educated. These are reasons why young boys traveled back then. Of course, there are promises that they have made to women, their lady love, telling about the number of monsoons that they should cross, telling about the seasonal changes, the number of frequencies in which the monsoons get covered. They say 3 monsoons from now, I'll be there for you. 3 winters from now, I'll be there for you. 3 springs and I'll be there for you. This is how days were calculated. So every monsoon season was considered, one cycle was considered a year's rotation. So that way, if 3 monsoons are over, you will meet me again, was the word that the parting lover would have given. That would have been his promise. So the evening times, in a way, sets in a lot of distraction in them. As we saw, for people who are the couples there, they look forward for the evenings, the newly married especially. Men look forward for the evenings to go back home after their work, to say hi to their wife, to be greeted by their wife, to spend time in her company. But there are also women who are not with their partners. The men who have gone, as I told you, to fight wars or to transact, to establish a business, have gone abroad, or who have gone to faraway places to get educated. These are the women who wait for them coming back. For them, the mornings are more suitable because there is a lot of distraction. They have activities happening, they have neighbors, they have friends to spend time with, they go to the riverside, they bathe, they get water. So the time kind of gets distracted. But as the evening sets in, as the solitude comes in, as it darkens around with not much of activities, after having lit the lamp for the night, they are by themselves. There is no more of company. The girls, their neighbors who were spending time in the morning with chit-chats and striking random conversations, they are not there anymore. They have their boyfriends, they have their husbands who have come back home. So they are occupied. But there is this girl whose lover is far away, who finds it very tough to kill the time. And as the time rolls, every moment seems like a century, if not more. So every minute of the evening seems like going eternal. So it doesn't seem to come to a close at all. And all of this, all through the night, as the night sets in, she wakes up once in a while to see if the moon has traversed the horizons, whether the sun seems to be being somewhere close to rise the next day morning, so she can be distracted. Unfortunately for her, the night seems eternal. It just seems getting lengthy and lengthy. It just seems growing. And that is exactly where it becomes very tough for her. So her distraction is lost, and so she seems to be confused. The inner self of her is lit, it's burning, but there is nobody to quench her thirst. And that's where she finds it very tough. And so the evenings need not be a part of the day that we always look forward for, not for everybody. So the pleasant evenings for one seems to be quite a challenging moment for the others. Generally in Sangam literature, love lost or a lover yearning for her partner, waiting for him, spending time all by herself in solitude seems to be the theme for the evening. So for people who get to meet their couples, they are blessed. For those who have lost them for whatever, it is very challenging. So here Ilango Vadigal brings in the striking contrast of the evening, which for one is what they look forward for, and for the others it's how do I kill this? And right there, that's how Kannagi is. With having been forgotten by Kovalan and not knowing how to spend her evenings by herself, no necessity to get dressed up, no necessity to make her up well, no necessity to dress her eyes with kajal, to perfume herself with the best of the sandalwood paste, to wear all the beautiful jewelry that were given to her as her wedding gift, no necessity to use the mirror in fact to set yourself right, because there is nobody to appreciate your beauty. Who is going to look at you and appreciate you? The one who should be doing it is absent. So with no necessity for it. But Kannagi was not all by herself. There were other women also who had lost their husbands to their own lust. And here they are, the women, with no clue as to when it is or how it is going to be there all by themselves. So it was not just Kannagi. So it talks about several other women who were in similar planes, not knowing how to kill their time or how to move forward, or what fortune or fate has in store for them. So Kannagi is here with her life, clueless about her life, not knowing how to handle this. She is very young too. She was 12 or 14 when she got married, and all of this happens in the next very few months. And so a woman who is probably in her 15 and not knowing how to deal with this, led all by herself. She is well aware that Kovalan is with Madhavi. People who had seen him strike the deal with the hunchback women at the entrance of the theatre and having sucked in by lust is not going to come back. She had her own thoughts, but she always thought there can be hope in life. Now Kannagi's epitome of being hopeful. Kannagi is looked upon as this woman who was determined, whose perseverance had no limits, who was so hopeful. So the lessons that we learn from Kannagi typically starts from this chapter. She has her hopes best held up, and she knows that he will come back one day and I'll wait for him. This patience, perseverance, determination gave her some hope in life. And did she win? How did things change? Well, there are going to be more twists starting from now on. So at the end of this chapter, Ilangovadigal tells about parting of Kovalan from Kannagi, having fallen for Madhavi, but beware, Madhavi is not to be blamed. It was a tradition back then, and the lust of Kovalan or he falling for his senses caused all his ill fate. So Madhavi is not, she's no villain here. So it is Kovalan's fate which played a role. Kannagi's determination, her mental strength promised her that she should be here waiting for him, which she did. Signing off here, Madhusudhanan Kalaichelvan. Nandri, Vanakkam.